Hello again. I've done some learning. I bought a CNC small benchtop engraver, and I've been making molds that are engraved inside. I'm not selling them because, well, I got a lot of learning to do on using the machine, but I'm getting better at doing simple things like text. But what I've noticed is when you pour them, you'll get any degree of clarity on the text from just barely be able to read it to where 90% of the characters filled. And in the experimenting I did today, I found there are ways to, I won't be able to get this really clear, but there are ways to make the text come out very clear and repeatable. And what it is if the mold is cold, the cold shock, the minute you pour the molten metal in, it starts to set before the metal has a chance to go down into the bottom. So what I've learned is that if you heat the mold, heat the metal, take the mold out of the heat while it's still got color, and pour the mold, then you do get a full fill on all the text, and produces a really nice looking ingot. This is, I'm doing this with jewelry grade pewter, but it, you know, sama. If you're doing gold, silver, you just need to get the mold hot. So I'll do a little demo of it. I'll pour a cold mold, and then I'll pour one that I've heated. So I've got a little furnace running right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pour this mold, and I'm going to take away all my advantages. I preheated my block, so I'm going to get it out of the road. I'll put the mold right on the block. The other day I was doing a video, and when I went to change position like this, the crucible fell out. I had dropped my tongs, and the handle had bent to where they wouldn't go all the way together again. Just one of those things you have to watch. Okay, so while this is cooling, I need to get some more Babbitt going in there. So Babbitt, pewter. Well, that's almost the same too. Take a couple of these. So a note of interest, if you look at some of the charts and you see the melting points of metal, the thing that a person should keep in mind that the melting point is far lower than what an actual working temperature is. The pewter is, let's say that it melts at 620 degrees. And that all depends on the ratio that it has. Like I said, I use the English formula pewter. So the more copper and different alloys that they add to it, it changes the melting point. So okay, I got that ingot out of there. So you need to get into the working temperature of the metal. So right now those ingots I put in still haven't totally melted, so I'm going to bring the temperature of that up. Now I'm also going to take the mold and I'm going to drop it down in there, and then I'm going to take my anti-heat sink block and I'm going to set it on top of there, and then we're going to do a little more vigorous flame. really a poor fill job of all the text. Hard to get that where you can see it. If I get too close, it'll just get blurry. But you can see the letters. The 925 filled way better than the sterling in the center of the sterling, and I poured the silver so I could tell, excuse me, that when the pewter went in, it was closer to the 925. So I'll just set that out of the way for now. I'm going to keep an eye on the... So this kind of tells me why I've had such a success on my gravity molds as far as the pour, because the mold's going to get just as hot as the metal. And so I'm going to cut this engraving. I have a gravity mold and art bar set up over there. All I need to do is center it, and then I'll do a test with silver. And while we're talking about a little bit of silver, I have also noted that I can take gravity mold, use the same mold, pour it with sterling silver, and it's perfect. If I take the same mold, put it together, do it with pure silver, it's bubbly and ripply, and I've done like 5 pours. All the sterling comes out great, and all of the other comes out poopy. So anyway, now my mold is getting some color to it. So first I'm going to get the slag off of the top of the pewter. Okay, now the mold's got color. Poured it, and now the only bad thing about this process is you have to sit and wait for it to cool a little longer. But I have a big slab of steel here that once that is set up a little bit, this is all that steel's already got this piece that I poured to where it's cold enough to handle. But like I say, it's got very poor detail. This was one of my first attempts. You know me, I love the skull and crossbones. And this one, I heated this mold up till it was on the low side of yellow. And even though I used a very fine flat bottomed end mill on this, all of the detail filled. Excuse me, when I did it, poured it with the mold not being preheated, with very poor reproduction. Now, there is one thing of people, if you wanted a flat back mold when the metal is still molten, you can take a flat piece and just push it right down on top of that, and it'll run the metal out the top, but you'll get a much flatter back, so you won't get the bread loaf effect. So anyway, there's about 10 different things I should be doing today, but I know that there are a lot of people out there that have bought embossed or engraved molds, and when they pour them, they're real unhappy with the results. And it's just the fact of, if I took the pewter and poured it on this slab of metal, I mean, it's just going to set. And you're getting exactly the same thing in the mold. So to let your metal flow, then what you pour it into needs to be equally as hot. So, like I say, I'll edit a bunch of this blabber out of here, but it's going to take that a little bit to set. So what I do is I cap. Yeah, it's already set, but I don't know if it's set. And it's deceiving because the metal's going to set in towards the bottom, and where it's touching the least amount of heat sinking types of materials that's going to pull the heat out, it stays molten sometimes. I've had it where it looked good and I picked the mold up and turned it over and the center of the mold poured out of the ingot. So let me add one more thing while I'm blabbing on while this cools. Do not get your molds near water. Don't ever put your graphite molds in water to cool them. As hard as graphite may seem and look, and as fast as it'll kill my end mills, it's still porous. And you'll know when you've got moisture in your mold, because like when I just poured this mold, it would have blown the babbitt right back, or the, I keep calling it babbitt, that's what it looks like, but pewter, it would have blown it right back out of the mold. So if your molds do get moisture, you can either put it in a furnace on a real low fire. I use the wife's oven at about 250 degrees. Stick it on a cookie sheet with some tin foil on it and bake them for 3 to 4 hours. And it will take the moisture out. So I can see if I can handle this better. Pull it over to where I can get it. Fill the engraving clear to the bottom, nice and each character is pretty much equal height. I gotta find out why my engraver made the 9 on the 925 deeper, but what you need to do if you bought molds and you're having poor luck, then give them a try to heat them. My CNC's sitting over there running right now. I'm gonna cut this same pattern into an art bar and then do it with sterling and see what I get. So anyway, if you're having trouble getting your embossed and engraved molds to fill, heat them up, because you need to get the metal hot. If your sterling melts in the 16s, take it up to 1900. You know, don't ever get it near the boiling point, but get it up and give yourself every opportunity if you're pouring open molds, because it's the same thing. If you're doing the gravity molds, it pretty much, the molds get themselves where they need to be. So anyway, that's just what I've learned so far about this, so I'm out of here for today.